Hi, everybody. Gene here. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, where every single week we answer the most common and uncommon questions about tapping and EFT so you can eliminate self-sabotage and take the action that you want. One of the things that is really important when we are tapping is not just knowing how to tap, but how to dissect and figure out what are the actual root causes and what's going on and the most effective way to approach those. And so that is what we call the art of delivery. At the end of August and beginning of September, I'm doing 3 two-day events. It's the exact same event 3 times. I'm offering it over 3 weekends, so you can find a time and a date that works for you. I'm doing it at different times for different parts of the world, where over the course of 2 days, I'm going to teach you exactly how I work with clients, what I'm thinking about, the questions that I ask, how I uncover problems, and the actual tools and tactics that I use to provide that sort of transformation. Not only am I going to be teaching you, I'm going to demonstrate everything with people in the class, and then you're getting an opportunity hands-on to try every single thing that I teach you. So at the end of 2 days, not only will you have an understanding, but you'll have experience with all of these tools. And this is true if you're tapping on your own or if you are working with clients. The tools work both ways, and you're going to end up with a recording of the entire event so you can go back and listen to it again and again so you can master this art of a delivery. If you'd like more information, all you need to do is go to tappingartofdelivery.com. That's tappingartofdelivery.com. And if you use the coupon code podcast, you will get 50% off the training. If you have any questions, please drop me a note, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. This is Gene Montrastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 470, originally aired July 15th, 2020. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending a little time with me. Recently, I did an interview about the podcast for a magazine. It's called Podcast Magazine, and it's about people who podcast for people who like to listen to podcasts. And one of the questions I was asked in the interview process, which actually happened a couple of months ago, was, why did I start the podcast? And one of the primary reasons why I started the podcast was I was looking for an opportunity to expand my skill set and to get better at tapping. Because when I did an interview, I was putting myself in a situation where I was getting a chance to ask some of the brightest minds in change work the questions that I wanted to have answered. And so over the course of the last 11 and a half years that the podcast has existed, I have learned so much from those people, and I'm super lucky. Many of the guests have become great friends of mine through that particular process. And so what I did was I decided to reach out to the entire tapping community, a bunch of practitioners that I really enjoyed, and I asked them a number of questions. I asked them 5 questions. And when you're creating content like this, it's called a roundup, where you ask the exact same questions of a bunch of people and you round up their answers. And so on the website, over the course of the last 5 weeks, I have taken those 5 questions and I have shared a bunch of the answers from my friends and practitioners. I'd like to thank Khym, Alan Davidson, Jondi Whitis, Robin Bilazarian, Kris Ferraro, Gwyneth Moss, Deborah Miller, Jake Khym, Tania A Prince, Ange Finn, Nancy Forrester, Peta Stapleton, Julie Schiffman, Steve Wells, and Mary Ayers for taking time to answer those questions. I've actually shared a bunch of their answers on the website. If you go to tappingqa.com/round-up, tappingqa.com/round-up, you'll get a chance to see the answers that they have provided to these 5 questions. And so it is a great way for you to really draw on their experience. The link is also in the show notes. So if you just go into your podcasting app of choice, click on the show notes, you'll get a chance to read all of their answers. And so the 5 questions I asked are, what lessons have clients taught you about healing? What is something you've changed your mind about when it comes to healing, either working with clients or going through your own transformational process? If you were to start your healing journey over again, what would you do differently? What is the one thing you wish your clients believed about themselves? And what is the one thing you wished your clients believed about the healing process? And so it was really great going through all of these answers and kind of collating the best of the best. Again, I would really encourage you to go to tappingqna.com/roundup to read all of the answers. And so what I'd like to do in this podcast is I would like to take those 5 questions and share what I have learned, because it has truly been a learning and healing journey for me over the course of the last 13 years that Tapping Q&A has existed, over the course of the last 14 years or so that I've had tapping in my life. So let's just take those questions one at a time. Number 1, what lessons have clients taught you about healing? And as I thought about this question, there are actually 2 things that I've really taken from my clients. One isn't actually about the healing process, but it's from witnessing the healing process. Basically, when I am here in my home office working with clients, I am spending time hearing people be incredibly honest about what is going on in their subconscious mind. That they're being honest and direct about what they are experiencing. And many times as they do that, they're having to wrestle with things that are really embarrassing as they unpack and explain the reason why they are that they are. And they have to admit the failures that they've had. They have to admit the fears that are crippling and holding them back. And through that amazing amount of honesty, what it has taught me is it's taught me to give the people around me the benefit of the doubt. To recognize that when people are not at their best, in many cases they're trying to be their best. And that doesn't mean they get a pass, and that doesn't mean that they don't have to take responsibility for the choices or lack of choices that they're making as they're navigating the day. But instead what they're doing is they're working from the resource state that they're in. And when I am in a similar resource state, I make the similar types of mistakes. And so not every time, and certainly not when I get hurt in really specific ways, but more often when something is going wrong and someone is acting in a way that doesn't seem like them at their best, I'm able to ask the questions why, so that I can respond in a way that might be helpful to them, but more importantly is going to be helpful to me because I'm responding to what is actually going on, not what I'm perceiving going on. The other lesson that I've really learned inside of this is that the healing process is a really personal one. And I don't just mean it is about me personally and I'm wrestling with my own personal things, but the healing process is going to happen best inside of the worldview that the person who is doing the healing lives within. I often teach about and talk about, like I will be in the Mastering the Art of Delivery class that I'm teaching, is as a practitioner, my job is to show up as the color of water. And what I mean by that is it is the worldview of the client that I'm reflecting back. And so when I'm working with them, the spiritual framework that they work within, the vocabulary that they use to describe God or spirit or energy or whatever, the way they understand the healing process, the way they understand their place in the world, I need to be working from their worldview in order to be helpful. Because if I'm showing up with my worldview and it doesn't resonate with them, it doesn't matter how useful the tool is to me. If they can't access it, then it's not useful. And so for the lesson I've learned is the healing process is personal inside of our context. And when we recognize that, it makes it easier for us to be able to be helpful in transformation. Question number 2, what is something you've changed your mind about when it comes to healing from working with clients or your own transformational process? I think one of the biggest changes that's happened for me in the work that I do with clients is the length of my client sessions has shortened. When I started, I would only work with someone for an hour and oftentimes 90 minutes. Now I'm in a situation where most of the sessions I do are 30 minutes or 45 minutes and occasionally an hour. But the reason that is that I really like getting feedback from the world. I like seeing if we have gone far enough with the transformation. And so by doing really laser-focused work, we're doing some amount of transformation, and we know whether or not we're on the right track by the way someone responds to what goes on out in the world, because the transformation, I don't like healing for healing's sake. I want to be working on the thing that is getting in the way of you taking the action that you want or enjoying your day or becoming who you want. And it's not about, well, this thing happened in the past that was really horrible. I want to clean that up. I only want to spend time on the things in the past that are in the way of what's going on right now. And as we're doing work, we might think we're working on the exact right issue, but we're not going to know without the feedback of the daily life. Now, there are times in which doing an hour of work really makes sense because of the size of the issue and how far we want to go, or if we're in a situation where we want to work on 2 or 3 issues. But I'm finding more and more if we're working on a single issue, I would rather do 2 30-minute sessions a week apart than 1 1-hour session. Because the feedback that we get from living lets us know if we're heading in the right direction. I can remember years ago, and the reason that this comes up is the change, is I was coaching and teaching in someone else's program. And because of the changing nature of the program, they wanted to take the calls from 45 minutes to 30 minutes. And my first thought was, I can't do anything in 30 minutes. We can't get anywhere in 30 minutes. But I've really changed my disposition and my point of view about that. Question number 3. If you were to start your own healing journey over again, what is something that you would do differently? I think the thing that I would do differently is I would give myself permission to feel deeper sooner. Particularly at the beginning of my healing journey, and it's still something I need to remind myself of, is I understood, and I continue to I understood that the emotions were the enemy because I didn't like feeling the emotions, particularly the really gross emotions like guilt and shame. And so what I was trying to do was I was trying not to feel them. Like that's what I thought the goal of tapping was initially, or the goal of transformation, even before I found my way to tapping, was not to feel the bad emotions. And what I've come to learn is the emotions are information that is pointing to the thing that needs to be transformed. The emotion that I'm feeling, the anger, the sadness, the guilt, the shame, the overwhelm, is information about something else. It's a symptom. It's kind of like a blinking red light on the dashboard of a car telling you something is wrong. There was this Simpsons episode where I can remember years and years ago where Homer is dealing with this issue in his car and there's a light on his dashboard that's going off. And the way that he fixed it was he put a piece of tape over the light. And so oftentimes when we're just dealing with the emotion or we're trying to stop feeling the emotion, we're just covering up the red blinking light. And by giving myself permission to feel the emotion sooner and deeper, then I'm going to unpack what they're about. It's not about numbing the emotion. Now, there are times in my life in which doing triage tapping and just cleaning up something in the moment is really super, super valuable. But if I'm doing work that's about transformation and healing, it's not about how I feel in the moment. It's about the long-term transformation. And so instead of trying to numb the emotion, it's leaning into it. It's listening to it. It's gathering information from it. Question number 4. What is the one thing you wish your clients believed about themselves? The thing that I wish I could change about what my clients believe about themselves is the standard in which they're holding themselves to. In last week's podcast, we actually talked about this in a pretty extensive way in podcast 469. But this idea that I am measuring myself against an internal standard, which is an unfair internal standard. Because we understand our intention, we expect ourselves to be perfect so much. And when we're not perfect, if we don't do everything letter perfect, we beat ourselves up and we don't recognize the outcome. We don't recognize the value of the action. We only recognize the standard we were holding ourselves to and whether or not we met it. And so if I could in some way help clients to see what is possible for them, to help them see the value of the transformation that they're going through, and to recognize the standard that they're holding themselves to is so unuseful and so unrealistic, not only would it make the healing process easier, but it would make the day-to-day life experience easier even before we did any sort of healing and transformation. Question number 5. What is the one thing you wish your clients believed about the healing process? There are 2 things for me. One is, and this was something that we explored back in the first 10 episodes of this podcast, and it's the idea of the 10% solution, which I learned from my friend Dan Cleary. And for most of you, you've heard this, but for those of you who are new, the 10% solution is we oftentimes make healing an all or nothing proposition. Dan works with pain, and so I'm either in pain or I'm not. And if the goal of doing work, tapping, hypnosis, NLP, anything else is to be pain-free, then we're only going to be satisfied if we're pain-free. With the 10% solution, the question is, how would your life be better if we reduce the discomfort, the pain, the emotion, the problem by 10%? And in some cases, simply reducing something by 10% makes our lives so much better. If I reduce my fear by 10%, I take more action. If I reduce my pain by 10%, I get to be more active. If I reduce my discomfort by 10%, I sleep easier. And so recognizing the fact that transformation is not an all or nothing proposition, and we recognize it not as an all or nothing proposition, but as a process, we're not just saying that it's not valuable and we're kind of making it easier on ourselves, but we're recognizing the value of the incremental process because in many cases, not all, but in many cases, there's value in recognizing that. Because one, we get to enjoy the outcome, and two, it encourages us to go deeper and do more because we're able to see the tangible value of the work that we've done so far. The other thing I wish my clients understood about the healing process is the idea that in tapping, we say the more specific we are, the more powerful the tapping is. And that is true, because the more specific we are, the more in tune we are with the subconscious belief, story, history, memory, and the easier it is for us to do transformation and do memory consolidation where we're transforming that thing that is informing what is going forward. But it's not tapping is successful when we are specific, but we are going to be successful with tapping when we are as specific as possible. And sometimes being specific is only saying, this sucks, or I'm angry, or I'm overwhelmed. And we have no details, and we have no other words. But since that is as specific as we can be, that's the place we start, because as we tap on that little piece, that is not very specific, but as we tap on that little piece, we are going to start to get some relief, which is going to allow us to be more specific with more details. The number of times I'm tapping with clients as we're going along, and I'll say a phrase, and they'll say the phrase, and they'll add 3 more details that they didn't have before. Because as we are tapping, they're seeing the problem more clearly, and they're tuning in, and they're taking advantage of that more quickly. And so I wish clients understood the fact that being specific as possible does not mean we have to be specific. It just means we're being as specific as possible. So those are my answers to those 5 questions. Again, I'd really encourage you to go to tappingqa.com/round-up. Check out those 5 questions that have been answered by some of my favorite practitioners from all over the world who are very generous to give their time to share that. I would also love to hear your responses to these questions that I love learning from my clients and I love learning from my listeners. So as you go to tappingqa.com/round-up, again, link is in the show notes, or if you're listening to this in the website, you'll see a link right above the player. For each of the 5 questions, I've actually separated them out into their own posts. So go to the question that really strikes you, go into the comment section. I would love to hear your response to that. If you'd like to be in a situation where you are being more effective with your tapping, where you are going deeper, where it is easier for you to get results and uncover problems, to be able to learn lessons faster like we've talked about today, and to be able to learn a lot of lessons that I've heard and gotten from these amazing people over the years, I would really encourage you to check out the Mastering the Art of Delivery class that I'm teaching. I'm so excited about the content. You are going to be a more efficient tapper. You are going to be more insightful working with other people. You're going to understand your root causes faster and easier by going through this training. This is an opportunity for you to take tapping from whatever level you are at right now, be it super introductory or someone who has been doing it for years, and you're going to get more out of your tapping from this training. Go to tappingartofdelivery.com. The link is in the show notes, tappingartofdelivery.com. And remember, if you use the discount code podcast, you will get half off. Each of the weekends is at a different time, so that depending on where you are in the world, there is an opportunity for you to take advantage of this. I am even doing the 3rd weekend where I'm going to do it late at night for my friends who are in Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. So you get the opportunity to do it during the day. I know how hard it is for people on that side of the world to miss out on many great trainings. So I'm going to bring the training to you. I can't do it because of what's going on in the world physically, but virtually I'm going to do it at a time that makes sense for you. If you have questions, please let me know. Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. Please check out the roundup. Check out all of the answers from all those practitioners who gave me their time and their attention to share some really amazing stuff with you. I learned a lot by going through it. If you know someone in your life who could benefit from this conversation today, please be our ambassador. As always, don't spam your inbox, but if you know someone who would really enjoy this conversation and could learn something from it, please pass it along. The highest compliment you can pay for me and my work is to share it with someone else. The most common way someone finds something like this is from the recommendation of a friend, so they're unlikely to find it on their own. This is a chance for you to make someone in your life's day a little better, to make their transformation process a little easier, which is going to help all of us out. Questions and comments can always be directed Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. Or if you're on the website, click on that contact link. If you're in the Tapping Q&A app, click on the contact link. From the app, you can send me an email. You can even send me a voice memo. I love hearing questions and comments from people just like you. Send me your answer to these questions. I'd love to hear about your transformational process. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli Tapping Q&A. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli and Tapping Q&A.